Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special edition of the Don Lemon Show. We're doing, I guess you can call this an emergency show. I'm actually in New Orleans for Essence Festival, covering some other things. But we had this enormous interview tonight with George Stephanopoulos of ABC News with the President Joe Biden. And pardon our sort of crude, going on the air, but it ended a little bit earlier than we thought. We thought it was going to go for the hour. But in any case, in any rate, we've got the Richard Green with us, Democratic strategist, civics professor, and all things politics. Richard, I watched High Hopes. A lot of people were watching. There's a lot of interest. I'm wondering what your initial assessment is at this point.
I think it's over.
Hmm.
I think it's over. He needed to be flawless. And just the one thing towards the beginning of the interview where he can't remember whether he watched his own debate, the most important few moments of his 50-plus year political career, the fact that he can't remember that, and it only happened on Thursday, last Thursday, that confirms what I think people are feeling, which is he's been an amazing president. We owe him a debt of gratitude. He's an incredible man. He's accomplished so much, but we do not want, we meaning I think the country does not, who believes in him, who does not want to have Donald Trump, we do not want to go to sleep every night nervous that there's going to be a gaffe the next day and wake up the next morning wondering whether when we turn on the news there's going to be another gaffe. It's done.
Not
It's
another
done.
gaffe as president, but a gaffe as candidate. But go on.
Yeah, I have very little doubt. Again, we have to make a distinction. Can he be an effective president? Yes, because he's been in politics a long time. He has a very experienced, very smart team of advisors, except the advisors preparing him for a debate, but for actually running the country. And I think there's very little doubt that he could run the country more or less effectively. But you don't get to run the country unless you convince 270 electoral college votes worth of Americans that you can do it. And I don't think he's going to be able to do it. Sam Harris, who I think is a very wise voice, is coming out. Everybody's coming out, not everybody, but a lot of people are coming out saying take the win. Take the win, President Biden. You've been an incredible president. It's time to move on. If we were running against any other kind of candidate, if it was a Mitt Romney, for example, or John McCain, fine, we can risk it, but we can't risk it when the democracy is literally on a knife's edge. I said, when we were on last time, I said I thought it was 55-45 that there would be another candidate running as the Democratic nominee. I would say it's now 75 or 80 to 20 or 25.
So I have to tell you, just I was with some Biden folks who work for the White House and for the campaign this evening. And I said, there was sort of this scuttlebutt about whether the president would step aside, Richard, and whether maybe in this interview, he would say, you know what, I'm not going to do it. There are too many calls growing saying that I shouldn't. The donors are not with me. There are Democrats who are coming out. And they said, Don, look at the reality right now. The vice president of the United States is on her way to New Orleans, where I am, to come to Essence Fest to speak tomorrow. And Joe Biden's people were here, some of them here as well. And he said, if that was going to happen, they wouldn't be here. They are still very pro Biden, still high on Biden, regardless of the outcome of this interview. He's still in it, and they believe in him. So what does that mean? The only person who can decide this is Joe Biden.
So it broke up a little bit. I don't know if it's on my end or yours. Are you trying to say that these people are telling you that there is a path forward for Joe Biden at this point?
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Listen, here's the thing. We're all adults. We know what politics is. And Joe Biden is absolutely right that people have counted him out over and over again. Definitely, you remember 4 years ago, until James Clyburn came in and South Carolina saved him, there was almost no one saying that Joe Biden could in fact win. So I think when you've been in politics that long and you believe in yourself, and thank God we have a president of the United States who believes in himself, right? You're going to want to tough it out, right? It's like Carlos Alcaraz. He's down 2-1 and he pulls out, an incredible victory today at Wimbledon against Francis Tiafoe. That's baked in. Politicians are going to do politician stuff, but that is not. I mean, George Stephanopoulos in this interview said, "Are you being honest with yourself, Mr. President? Are you really saying that you feel that you can do this? And are you being honest with yourself?" And he said, "Yes, I am." But we have to disregard that political speak, and we have to pay attention to the answer. When George Stephanopoulos said, "Have you had a neurological exam?" Joe Biden said, "Well, I was told I don't need one." I mean, that's BS. He needs one. Donald Trump needs one. The American public does not believe that Joe Biden can make it for 4 years. And as I've said before, what I'm afraid of as a Democratic strategist is that the Republicans, the Trump campaign is going to get some very fancy AI expert to show us exactly what Joe Biden's going to look like in 6 months, a year, in 2 years, and 3 years, and at the end of a second term. And people are going to be horrified by that.
So the moment that you spoke about where he couldn't say, I don't know if he remembered, but I think the answer at least was when George Stephanopoulos said, did you watch your performance, your debate performance? And here's what he said. Watch this.
Did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
I don't think I did, no.
Well, what I want to get at is, what were you experiencing as you were going through the debate? Did you know how badly it was going?
Yeah, look, the whole way I prepared, nobody's fault, mine. Nobody's fault but mine. I prepared what I usually would do, sitting down, as I did come back with foreign leaders or the National Security Council, for explicit detail. And I realized about partway through that, I get quoted, the New York Times had me down at 10 points before the debate, 9 now, or whatever the hell it is. The fact of the matter is that what I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. The way the debate ran, not my fault, nobody else's fault. No one else's fault.
But it seemed like you were having trouble from the first question in, even before he spoke.
Well, I just had a bad night.
Richard, I don't know what to say to that.
Not good.
Because
it's not good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I know that people are, I've heard from so many people who are saying one thing in public and one thing in private. And it reminds me of Donald Trump. Let's just be honest. It reminds me of Donald Trump in 2016 and also in 2020 for that matter. It would say one thing about him personally, and then they'd say a different thing on television. As I was speaking to the Biden folks tonight, they were really high on Joe Biden, and they were saying, we need to make sure what he has to prove is that this is not that it was a one-off event, that it wasn't going to happen again. And my question was it a one-off event? And can you actually say that after that? And it's an honest question. I don't know. But I think that a lot of people are being really naive about the circumstances that we're in. So whether you think Joe Biden is he's a viable person to run for president or not, you have to live in reality. And as I think it was The Wire, the TV show on HBO, that said, you want things to be a certain way. I'm paraphrasing here, but they're actually the other way. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think this is a kind of come to Jesus moment for the Democratic Party. and for Joe Biden and for Jill Biden and for the country. And honestly, a week after is not the time to point out that Donald Trump lied 28 times.
Yes.
I would have had a pen and a paper and I would have been marking down every single time he lied and started every one of my answers from Jake or Dana and saying that's lie number 7, 8, and 9 for Donald Trump. Listen, I love Joe Biden. I think America really appreciates and loves this man. He's a deeply decent, wonderful, competent man. And
Yeah.
it's too risky. It's too
Mhm.
risky. That's the problem.
The quote is, "You want it to be one way, but it's the other." I think that just very simply says a lot. You want it to be one way, but it's the other. So, and just watching, I'm not sure he did anything to reassure anyone about anything. And perhaps he is not as, cognitive declined as, as his opponents are saying. But the point is that in this interview, he did not help himself.
He needed to be perfect, and he wasn't perfect. And as I said, just not being able to remember whether you watched the most important debate you've ever been in your life 8 days later, that alone, absent anything and everything else, that would cause me to go, wow.
Richard, this isn't about Donald Trump. Everyone says, well, not everyone, this is about Donald Trump. He's terrible. He's a threat to democracy. We're beyond that now. Those things are true.
Don, I think,
go on.
No, go ahead.
I believe that is true, that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, that another Donald Trump administration and presidency would be detrimental for the country. But we're beyond that now. This isn't about Donald Trump. This is about Joe Biden's performance. This is about the doubts that donors have. This is about the doubts that Democrats have. And even beyond that, in order to win elections in the United States in November, the down ballot candidates are going to need support. They're going to need money. They're going to need donations. They're going to need help from the DNC. And at this point, there are so many people who are backing out. I'm not sure it is sustainable. And those people know the reality of it. They know the narrative. Yes, they agree. Oh my God, Donald Trump is terrible, and that's what we should be putting out there. But they also live in a reality where there are enough people who are Democratic supporters who are all of a sudden not Democratic supporters. They're not getting the money and the funds and the backing that they need. And so they're like, hey, at some point, we've got to come to the reality that maybe this is not sustainable.
And here's why that's really important, Don. If, in fact, Donald Trump does get reelected, the only checks and balances, to the extent that they can even be checks and balances when you have a dictator on day one, would come from a Democratic-controlled House and or a Democratic-controlled Senate. So I think the donors are shifting into defense mode. But I think the bottom line is this. We, as people who care about this country, in my opinion, certainly Democrats, we have one job. And it's not to care about Joe Biden's feelings. It's not to care about his legacy. It's not to care about what Jill or Hunter Biden or, people who love Joe Biden care about. It's to defeat Donald Trump. And I have said from the beginning, the only thing that matters is who is the best Democratic candidate to beat Donald Trump. And if it's Don Lemon, I think we should go with Don Lemon.
Yeah. So at this point, you don't believe that's Joe Biden? I'm not so sure I agree with that, but go on.
You're not sure you agree with what?
So okay, so let me say, how do I say this? I think the best person to beat Donald Trump is Joe Biden, the Joe Biden of 2020. But that is,
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. But also Joe Biden is tested, right? All of the other folks who are in, even Kamala Harris. Well, actually, Kamala Harris is tested. I can't say that about her because she has been vice president. She has been out there speaking. She has a record to stand on. And the polling is showing that. I think that the best person to be him, if you're looking at what people know, I don't know, for concrete now, that is confirmed, is Joe Biden. But I just don't know that. I don't believe the narrative is there. I think even if what was happening right now was happening, I'm sorry, even if Joe Biden had the performance that he had, right, and he had the interview that he had tonight, but folks were not backing away from him. I think, and Democrats were going all in. I would say, okay, he's great. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but I'm trying to tell you, if there wasn't the narrative around Joe Biden that there is now, if Democrats had said, all of them, right after the debate, this was bad, we don't care, we're moving on, stop. But that's not what every Democrat is saying. And that, so there you go.
So I think we have a little bit of time. I was not someone who was saying he's got to pull out right now, he's got to resign. I said, give it a break, give it a breath. I agree with the Biden campaign about that. Let's take a breath and let's look at the polling data. Let's have conversations. Let's, a lot of smart people in the Democratic Party. Let's use that brain trust and let's all come together around one goal. And the goal is, how do we defeat Donald Trump and save America's democracy? That's it. I think we've got another week or 2 weeks before we need to start executing on a strategy. I don't think it has to be today. If something comes out where Joe Biden all of a sudden does a Benjamin Button routine and he satisfies Don Lemon's desire to be back where he was in 2020, then great. I just think that's extraordinarily unlikely.
I remember in 2012 watching the debate between Paul Ryan and Joe Biden, and I was just, this is when Twitter was at its peak, and I was tweeting up a storm. I'm like, gosh, Joe Biden is amazing. He's a boss or whatever. There's a different Joe Biden, and I don't think I'm not sure if it's a fair assessment because, I'm not the same person I was in 2012. You know what I'm saying? Neither is Richard Green. But Richard Green and Don Lemon are not running for president of the United States.
Well, not yet. I've just kind of put your name into contention.
You're not the first person to do that. So the other thing is whether he is not. Do you think he's aware of the narrative? Because he's saying, I spoke to Hakeem Jeffries, I spoke to this person, I spoke to that person, and they're all behind me, and it's great. But are we living in the same world?
So it's a little bit like a baseball pitcher who's just given up 3 home runs, and the manager comes out, and because the baseball pitcher is a fighter, he's a competitor, he's got to believe in himself. That's how he got to the major leagues. He say, I'm okay, coach, I'm okay, I can do it, right? And they leave him in, and he gives up another home run and loses the game. I mean, I think it's part of that fog of war when you're in the battle and you're surrounded by people who love you and reinforce what they think you want to hear and what they want to tell you. And the only way to get the reality is to actually sit down with people who have different perspectives, watch this interview, watch other things, read Sam Harris, read other people, and say, you know what? I'm president of the United States. I pride myself and pride myself on being able to make really thoughtful decisions against competing, bits of analysis, information. And I think that's what needs to happen. And I think the truth will out, because I do think that Joe Biden is an honest, sincere man. I think he's just acting reflexively right now because he's in the heat of battle. But ultimately, I do think he'll see the light of day. And I think every day, we're reaching closer and closer to a critical mass where there will only be one decision.
One more soundbite. Let's listen.
Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious condition?
It was a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted. I didn't listen to my instincts in terms of preparing, and I had a bad night.
You know, you say you were exhausted, and I know you've said that before as well, but you came, and you did have a tough month, but you came home from Europe about 11 or 12 days before the debate, spent 6 days in Camp David. Why wasn't that enough rest time, enough recovery time?
Because I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the docs with me, I asked them, they did a COVID test because they were trying to figure out what was wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, you know, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold.
I had COVID, but go on. Richard, what do you say?
So my girlfriend and I were at the Obama-Biden fundraiser here in Los Angeles. And we talked about this before. We saw everyone who was there, and you could see it on tape. We saw him freezing and Barack Obama having to take his hand and take him off the stage. Even if that's explainable in some way, the optics defy the Maslow hierarchy of needs for human beings. We need to have our tribal leader, our alpha male who's in charge of our safety and security, be someone that we can count
debate
on.
night, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's true. He doesn't, you know, you can be forgiven a lot of things, but if you're the tribal leader, you cannot be forgiven for being weak. And I told you on the first time we talked, 93% of communication between human beings is nonverbal. And his nonverbals, his voice tone and his body language, no matter what his words say, Don, do not look, sound, or feel like a strong leader. And that's what's going to take him down. On the other hand, with all the lying and all the fascism and all of the everything you can throw at Donald Trump, he looks and sounds stronger. That's why so many people still support him.
Even though he's lying, he does. Would you call
if
this?
Someone's going to protect you, if someone can protect you, you don't care whether they're lying. That's basic primal human emotions.
Right. Yeah. Would you call this a Sophie's choice?
No, I'm optimistic about this. I really am. I think.
I mean, between the two candidates.
Oh, Sophie, but I don't think that's the choice that we're going to have.
Go on.
No, listen, no. If in fact it's November 5, exactly 4 months from today, and on my ballot and on everybody's ballot is Joseph R. Biden and Donald Trump, it's a little bit like chicken and chicken, you know what? There is no comparison. Donald Trump is not going to allow women to get their reproductive rights back. He's going to pass a national abortion ban. He's going to gut our environmental protections. He's going to usher in Project 2025, even if he says he's not going to. We're going to become a Christian nationalist fascist country compared to being run by a very experienced, very competent, very lovely, very decent man who's lost a step or two. To me, that's not even a close call in 100 years.
So let me ask you this, Richard, and I want to, because people cannot understand. I don't think people can relate to the honesty that you're giving now, and just how supportive you were and still are of Joe Biden. Pamela Carter is saying the great thing that we get to do here on streaming, especially on YouTube, is that we get to respond to the subscriber, the user, the viewer immediately. So Pamela Carter is saying, is this guy MAGA? Meaning you, Richard. Can you please explain to her your background?
Why does she think I'm MAGA? Why do you think she thinks I'm MAGA? Because
you're telling the truth about, and people don't want to accept the reality of what's happening right now. Even if you do not agree, even if let's say Joe Biden can run, and can be president, has the capability to be president capabilities for the next 4.5 years. The reality that we're in now is that there are a lot of doubtful people who are important to the process of running for the presidency of the United States, who are not convinced that who are not convinced that Joe Biden is the candidate to win Donald Trump. Not that Joe Biden is not capable of being president. He is, because he's doing it now. What this has to do with is that whether he is capable of beating Donald Trump as a candidate for president of the United States, whether he has the stamina to go up against him on a debate stage, which there is one more, and then in other events where he has to prove his mettle as a candidate for the presidency of the United States. Do you understand? There is a distinction.
Right. So let me make a distinction here. It's uncertain whether he does have the stamina and the mental, physical health to be a great, active, successful president for the next 4.5 years. What is that? But that's not the question. The question is, do the American people believe that?
Right.
Right. And if you're saying, if you're calling me MAGA, because I'm telling the truth about something, that's the opposite of MAGA. MAGA never tells the truth. And you can assure your subscriber that I am not MAGA. There is nothing about Donald Trump or MAGA that I, as an American who loves this country, feel is healthy for me, my family, people I love, or the country. And all I'm trying to do is make sure that we do not have a Christian nationalist, lying, sexually assaulting fascist in the Oval Office for the next 4.5 years, because I want someone, even if Joe Biden was 181, I would want him in the Oval Office because he's going to sign the Women's Health Protection Act. He's going to sign the Bipartisan Background Checks Act. He's going to sign climate legislation. He's going to sign the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and maybe the George Floyd Justice and Police. He's going to do the things that the American people want. And Donald Trump won't, even if he is more vibrant and more fit.
Who is the candidate then? What's the ticket, Richard?
Here, I'm going to give you a definitive answer, Don. Ready?
Yeah.
You ready for the definitive answer?
Yeah.
The ticket is whoever is the best presidential and vice presidential candidate to defeat Donald Trump. That's the definitive answer. I think that Kamala is rising in terms of people's acceptance of her. She's young, she's dynamic. If she can bring her California Attorney General, prosecutor, Kamala self to this campaign, I think she might do well. I've never, quite honestly, been a huge fan of her electorally. I didn't think that she had enough positives to overcome the negatives that people have. But a Kamala Harris, J.B. Pritzker ticket would be great, or Josh Shapiro would be great. It can't be Gretchen Whitmer. You can't have two women, but and
why
you
not,
can't have
though?
Gavin.
Why can't we have two women? But I understand what you're saying. But why not?
No, we can't have two women. We can't have two women because, listen, we haven't been able to elect even one. It goes back to Maslow's hierarchy.
Because we live in a sexist country. Yes, I get it. People are sexist.
Of course we do. Again, we have to put together a team that can win. And that's the only thing that counts. So I think it's quite honestly, listen, we have AI, we have sabermetrics for baseball, we've got all these things. We should be able to analyze who can do it. And if in a week or 2 weeks, Don, all of the data suggests from really smart people and a lot of thoughtful data wonking people, if it suggests that Joe Biden is the best chance, then we should go with Joe Biden. But I really, really doubt that.
Okay, that was my next question to you. If it is decided, if Joe Biden says, "Hey, I'm doing it, I'm not backing out," are you still all in for him? Are you going to vote for him?
1,000%. I would vote for this pen over Donald Trump. I mean, seriously. And I'll tell you why. We have to move, and this is something I've been working on as a civics. I was going to say something else that would be less PG, but I would vote for anything over Donald Trump. You can take it from there. But we have to move to a different understanding of politics and what it means to be a voter, right? It's not a personality contest. It's not American Idol where you have to pick the person who's the best singer or looks the best or is the sexiest or the cutest. We have to be transactional voters. Do you want to restore reproductive rights to all Americans? If so, you have to vote for Joe Biden, no matter how much you like him or don't like, or Kamala Harris, or whoever it is. And you go down the list. Do you want a national abortion ban that's going to affect all 50 states, including California, New York, Illinois, Kansas, Ohio, et cetera? If you want a national abortion ban, be a transactional voter and vote for Donald Trump. We have to focus on the issues beyond the personalities. Who do you want on the Supreme Court? On and on and on. That's a transactional redefinition of politics, and that's why I will always vote at this time for Democrats.
Okay, Richard, there's one thing I do agree with someone in the comments, and they're saying this IV4 says, dude needs better internet. The internet in your car the other day was better. What is going on with the internet at your house, Richard?
I don't know. You should have let me know before. I could have switched to my laptop. Is that really where this interview had to go to?
Well, I mean, look, it's an honest question. I've been sitting here wondering the whole night, and then someone in the comments said it, and I'm like, wait, you know what? That person is actually right. Listen, I don't know.
I will do our next interview from my Tesla. Okay.
Yeah, but here's what I think
I live up in the hills.
You need an Ethernet cord that goes directly to your modem, and you would be 100% solid. That's all I'm saying. Thomas Roberts says it is just distracting. That's it. I'm not going to beat up on Richard. iRising says poor Richard because we're beating up on him. We are beating up on Richard. I don't want to do that. So
how
Richard,
much am I getting paid for this, Don?
I'm gonna. You don't know. You have no idea. You have no idea what check I'm gonna send to you in the mail. So a lot of people want Michelle Obama to take one for the team because she's the one who they believe can 100% beat Donald Trump. Not going to happen.
Well, I have an idea. Michelle Obama, and Barack has been very clear about it, has zero interest in politics and being president. But I do think she might want to take one for the team. She runs, she gets elected, and as soon as she gets elected, she resigns and gives it to the VP. That way, at least we would win.
I have a very interesting story about the first lady, former first lady, Michelle Obama, which is, has to do with this, but I will save it for another time. Richard, I appreciate it. I want everyone who's watching now, because I want people to hit the thumbs up and hit the like button and subscribe or whatever. We've got just less than half of the people who are watching have hit the thumbs up button, and I want to make sure that you guys are liking the content. I got to tell, I'm in New Orleans, Richard. I'm with a bunch of political folks. We're here for the Essence Festival, which is the largest Black festival in the country. There are a lot of political types here. The vice president is going to speak at a panel. I think it's a one-on-one conversation right after I'm doing a panel with the Congressional Black Caucus on the state of Black America and the economy as it relates to Black Americans, and economic prosperity. And then the vice president comes on after me. What should the vice president do tomorrow as she's speaking here? What does she need to do?
She needs to be strong. She needs to be presidential. Donald Trump has already signaled what his attack is going to be on her. Did you see his tweet or his truth or whatever? He said, laugh in Kamala Harris. That disingenuous, childish kind of laughter that she used to have is something that is very unpresidential, and I think they're going to blast her on that. The other thing that they've come out against, did I freeze again?
No, you're
Don?
there. You're here.
Okay, good. Now you have me all very upset that
Sorry about that.
Been distracting the people watching. The other thing is he made an innuendo about how she slept her way to the top with Willie Brown. And, God, what a surprise that Donald Trump would go there, right? So I think she has to overcompensate, be as presidential, as strong, as tough, and as supportive of Joe Biden as she possibly can be at this point, because I think that will benefit her significantly.
I'm really surprised that he went there, considering the former first lady, Donald Trump's, first lady, considering the do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, why aren't we talking about that? Why is it only that one side of the political
It's
equation
it's
is
it's
actually being honest
it's
about
not for
stuff like
me.
this?
It's not for me to assert that or posit that unless someone else is talking about it, because I'm not a political person. But um, it's much more salacious, and there's much more evidence of that than with Kamala Harris. Yeah,
So
and
listen, we have to
yeah.
agree. If Hillary Clinton was a man, she would have won easily. There is clearly misogyny and a real bias against women, and this age-old idea that women can't be tough, they can't be commander in chief, they can't fight. They can't fight like men. Oh, you're fighting like. I think it's very tough for her, and especially if you're a woman of color. So she has to really show up as the strong, incredibly smart, articulate woman that we have seen on the Judiciary Committee, and also when she was Attorney General in California and U.S. Senator.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think she has
I,
it in her. I think she can
I,
do it.
I'm just surprised. I'm just surprised that he's, again, positing that, considering how people have how do I want to say this? Have alleged that the Trump first lady got to the country and actually met him. How they came to meet, and how that relationship was formed and put together. That he would even go there with anyone, any woman. So shocking, but no one. But I
That
think
is
that,
so
huh?
That is so You said that so diplomatically. That was
Yeah,
really good.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it. I don't know what happened to Richard in a
These are
minute.
fast.
Go ahead.
No, I'm
Sorry.
right here.
Go on. Say again.
Listen, these are exciting times. And I am happy. The silver lining of all of this is we're more engaged, and we should all be engaged. The thing that I think will kill our democracy more and faster than anything else is people to be disengaged and not care. And so let's all come together. Let's come together and choose the leadership and the future of America for the next 4 years. And I think ultimately, if we put our heads together on this, we can get it right.
Richard Green, what a night. What a night. What do you, before I let you go, what do you think happens now? What's next? What should we look for?
I think,
Timeline,
yeah,
timing?
I think Joe is going to do what he does. Again, he's been in politics since he was 29 years old. He's now 81. It's in his blood. It's in every cell of his body. I think he's going to fight. I would take with a grain of salt when he says, I'm not dropping out, I'm not dropping out. He's just posturing. But I think we need to watch and see how it all plays out. We need to see who in the United States Congress, governors, donors, et cetera, are coming out, right? There's been a slow drip. Again, I think we're not very far away from reaching a critical mass where the dam opens up and the floodgate, the water floods in, and it's gone. I do not think he's going to make it, but I think he deserves absolutely the right to give it a shot.
You saw what Mark Warner says, right? Mark Warner is trying to put
Yeah.
together a coalition for people to convince the president to drop out, to exit the race.
Well, that's the Goldwater strategy from, with Richard Nixon from 1974. I think more communication, more dialogue, more analysis is good. I wouldn't run away from it. Let's have this come to Jesus conversation as a family, as a party, and I think it's going to work out. And I think Joe Biden will ultimately give way to somebody, and I think it will cement his reputation as one of our great presidents.
All right, Richard, we're going to stay on top of this. I will let you know tomorrow. I'll be live here. I'm going to do some live broadcasting from the Essence Festival in New Orleans, and everyone's going to be specifically interested in what the congressional lawmakers that I speak to have to say, and they're going to be especially interested in what the Vice President of the United States has to say here when she is speaking in front of a coalition of people of color, mainly women, who will help determine who the next president of the United States is going to be. Richard Green, thank you for watching. And thank you for appearing, I should say, and for watching. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, John.
And thanks everybody for watching.
Sorry about the Wi-Fi.
No problem. And thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you next time on the Don Lemon Show.